In this session, we will be talking about loops and what are looping. So, if you are coming from any other programming language, I guess you might have heard this for loop or for do while loops and all, because in engineering or any basic programming, this concept will be there. So, loops are used to output multiple number of times. That is, the data can be, if we have to write suppose a name 100 time, we won't just print flutter. It will take a lot of time. In that case, we can use loops. And in the end, I will definitely tell you while building a real world application where loops are being used. So loops are of four types: for in, while, do while. Let's start understanding it one by one. So, what is a for loop? The for loop executes a block of code for a specific number of time, which we mention in the loop. So, the syntax is like this: we use for, then brackets, there is parenthesis. Inside that, there will be three data. First will be initialization, condition, and what should be done. You might get confused right now. Let's do it practically. I will remove all this thing. Let's start it. Loops. First will be for loop. So suppose I have this for loop syntax. First is initialization. That is int variable I is equal to 0. Then the condition I less than 3. And then what should be done next after this code of block will be executed. Like if I write print, so if I click run, this is how it will done. For I is equal to 0, that is I will be 0. Then it will check the condition. If I value is less than 3, if it's true, then it will go inside and execute this block of code. After the execution of this block of code, then it will go to this step, that is I plus plus, which implies I will become from 0 to 1. Let's run it. See, 0, 1, 2. It doesn't go forward, that is after 2, 3, because there is this condition. So this is a very basic thing, but most of the time we will be using loops while dealing with list or map. So I will write list marks is equal to again 50, 30, 20, 10. Then I will write for int I is equal to 0. I will be less than the length of the list, which will be 4, and I plus plus. And now if I want to print out, then I will just write the list name and the index, which will start from 0 because we have mentioned it here. So if you want, you can just pause and understand it again, because int I is 0. It will check if I is less than the length, which is 4. If yes, then it will print that value in the list of that index. First will be 0, that is 50. After that, it will do this step I plus plus 1, and then again the same thing will happen. Let's see the output. You can see the output 50, 30, 20, 10. So the loop is very powerful. And while building a real world application, you will be using loops all the time because the data which will be coming from the database will be in the form of an array or an list. So you have understood this for loop. Now the next loop is for in loop. So you might be thinking, why this for in loop? The for in loop is used to loop through a list or a map. It is being used most of the time. Just because this looping through the list is so common, so there is this specific kind of loop where we don't have to mention like the initialization or this step and all, because it's a waste of time if we already know what we have to do. So I will comment the above for, and here let's write this. And for in way of writing loop goes like var mark, that this is a simple variable in marks, and then print mark. See, the output is same, but the code looks so much cleaner than above because it's doing what? It is assigning this mark variable to the first element, second element, and then printing it automatically. And this for loop inbuilt knows that it should loop through the length of the list. It should not exceed. So it's a very common practice of using for loop in the real world application. I guess you have understood it. This for in can be used in maps as well. You have seen list, but let's try map. Var user is equal to key will be Rahul, age will be suppose 25, and then second will be Pratik, this is another name, and age will be say 30. Now if you want to loop through this map, you simply will write for var, this is the any variable name, in marks dot entries. So this is something you have to remember. Let's see, I guess there are so many operations you can do. Let's print and see what it outputs. Data dot. If I just write data, let's see, it shows an error or anything. Sorry, I have to write user. This was again silly mistake. So this user, if we are using a map, then you have to write entries. This you have to remember by heart because map is a different type of data type. And then you can just write data dot key and print. If you want value, then data dot value. Let's run it. See, Rahul 25, Pratik 30. So just imagine this user right now, it's containing only two data. But if you have an application like Facebook and there are crores or lakhs and whatever number of data, it's impossible for you to write everyone by their keys. In that case, we will be using looping. Now, more of the looping you will understand while we are building a Flutter application. Right now, you just understand the concept. Two loops are being done. The next one is the while loop. While loop also does the same job. It is not like very different. It also loops through the elements. We mostly use while loop when we don't know how many times the loop will actually execute. Here in example, we know the limit, that is while number less than this. But suppose music is being played, and until and unless the user presses the stop button, the music should continue playing. This is a good example. So let's do it through the while loop as well. I will comment it. Then I will just write int number is equal to 0 while number less than 10, print number and number plus plus, that is incremented. It's nothing new, it's same as the for loop. See, the way of writing is different. For loop is being written like this and while is like this. So the final loop is the do while. Do while loop is different from while loop because in the while loop, first the condition was checked and then after the code of block was executed. But in do while, first the code is executed at least once and then the condition will be checked. Let's try it with the same example. Int is number is 0. So we will just write do print number, but the condition will be number greater than 1. So just imagine here the condition is false. So if we were using this while loop, it shouldn't print. But since we are using do while, you check the output. See, 0. It is being printed once. If I write here number plus plus as well, then also the condition is false, but this code of block will be executed. So do while is not being used much. Matlab, it's like I haven't used do while building my applications. Most of the time we are dealing with for loop. So it's up to you which type of loop you want to use in your application. So in the next video, we will learn small two keywords as well, which are being used while we are using loops. Thank you.